Hey everyone, welcome back to Encinas Unfiltered. Today we got part 3 of our draft kit series, or our fantasy football series, whatever we want to call it. We really don't have a name for it. Just we first did a draft kit that was like 2.5 hours long. Then we did a mock draft, which was pretty fun with the community. That ended up turning into a league very last minute, so that was kind of fun as well. And this is just strictly draft strategies, and this is for vets and for newbies, a little bit of both. I know Xavier's been playing fantasy football for a while, and he doesn't even know about some of these strategies, so it'd be interesting to see how it goes. I know lately we've had a big boom in our YouTube and our Instagram and our TikTok. So if you're new here, welcome. This next 20 weeks till February, whatever it is, we're going to be doing strictly fantasy football. There will be some interviews with like fighters sprinkled in, maybe some unfiltered breakdown where we break down MMA and boxing. But for the most part, it's going to be mostly fantasy football. And the social medias are going to be a lot of memes. So if you love the memes, they're still going to be there. They're not going anywhere. But the long form content will be fantasy football. So with that being said, I kind of wanted to show everybody a little PowerPoint that I put together, a little TED Talks, if you will, Rod Talks. All right, so here's an overview of our draft strategies. These are the ones that you can find online. And these are the ones, honestly, over the last decade that I've heard. There might be plenty of strategies out there, but these are the most common. So these are the ones I'm going to go over. So you got hero running back, double hero running back, hero receiver, double hero receiver, zero running back, zero QB, zero receiver, zero tight end, and positional scarcity. So I'll go over all those in each slide. So don't worry if you're sitting there like, what the hell is he talking about? Don't worry, I got you. All right, hero running back. As it says, very simple. You're going to draft one running back early, so rounds 1 through 3. The reason why you want to do this is because you can build your team around him. Therefore, that's why it's called hero running back. So the pros of this is you have a running back number 1, and you have the flexibility later to draft who you want. So you're putting like, this is the guy I want fantasy, and it's a running back, so I'm going to go hero running back. So some of the guys you're looking for is your Bijans, your Saquons, your Gibbs, Henry, McCaffrey, and Genties. What's that?
Bijan.
He's the overall number 1 running back for most fantasy people. So I know you feel differently,
Well, I
but
mean, if they want to lose,
those are the guys that you're looking for to execute that strategy. So here in the double hero running back strategy is where you're looking for 2 running backs early in rounds 1 through 3. So you have that core foundation. So your starting running backs are filled with the top guys. So you're going to have that running back advantage every week. However, you're going to probably have some weaker receivers and some weaker tight ends early on. If your running backs are underperforming, it's going to affect how your receivers and your tight ends can do because you're not going really early to get some of these guys. Some of these examples. So, obviously included in the first list, those tier 1 guys, and then you're looking at guys like Achane, Taylor, Bucky, Jacobs, Kyron, and Alvin Kamara. And obviously there's much more, but these are just some examples that would fit in that double running back strategy. Next is a hero receiver strategy. So you're going to draft 1 receiver early in rounds 3 through 6. So you would think it would be rounds 1 through 4, but it's not exactly. Basically what you're doing is you're going to use the early rounds to grab a running back, tight end, or quarterback. Obviously, all these things play into different roles based on what kind of league you're in, dynasty, super flex, where you can have a quarterback in your flex spot. However, it's essentially allowing for a balanced roster with a top receiver 1 or a receiver 1. The cons of this is that you can miss out on a second elite receiver, so you might end up having like a flex guy or like a bench guy as your receiver 2 if you wait a little too late to grab a receiver. Some of the guys that would fit in this is not necessarily your number 1 receiver guys, but maybe like your tier 2s, tier 3s, which are like AJ Brown, Ladd McConkey, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, and JSN. So double hero receiver strategy. So, like I said, there's kind of a little bit of repeat here. However, in the double hero receiver strategy, you're going to draft 2 elite receivers early in the first 4 rounds. So personally, a preference, I would say you're going to basically try to go round 1, round 2 receiver, unless there's value at running back in round 2, and then go round 3 receiver. So you're going to build that receiver core kind of with the running back strategy, double hero, where you're going to have the 2 running backs, you're going to have the 2 receivers, and you're going to have high receiver scoring every week, but you're going to sacrifice some good running backs and some good tight ends early. So some of these targets, like I said, are going to be your top tier guys. You want Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Malik Neighbors, Nico Collins, Puka Nacua, and Brian Thomas Jr. And obviously there's a little bit of tier 1 and tier 2s, but I'm just trying to cover like the first 2-3 rounds of receivers that are coming off the board. And obviously there's way more guys, but these are just some examples. So this is a strategy that I see a lot and I really don't understand it. And I think for nowadays, I guess, like present time fantasy football, it doesn't really work. People do it, but it's called the zero running back strategy. So the issue with it is that you're delaying drafting running backs until the later rounds, but you have a strong receiver, tight end, quarterback, and it's risky if your running backs are not good that you're getting later. But I think the current issue with today's fantasy football and today's NFL is that there's a lot of running backs by committee, and there's a lot of guys splitting carries, and because of that, I think I would personally stay away from this only because I think there's only 10, 15 guys that are truly number ones on their team, and then everybody else is splitting carries. Like I like Bucky Irving, but he's still splitting carries with Rashad White. There's only a couple true number one guys. Like Genty's a true number one guy, even though he's a rookie and he's not proven yet. There's no one really behind him that's gonna take touches from him. So he's one of those guys where it's like it's kind of like a weird, difficult situation with today's running back situation. I think if this was 5 years ago where there's a plethora of running backs, this would work really well. But if you're insistent and you want to try to do this, you're essentially going to go after two top 20 receivers, a top three QB, so Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, somewhere in there, and you're going to go for a top three tight end, which is going to be your Brock Bowers, your Trey McBrides, and your George Kittles. Essentially, that's what you're looking at, and then you're going to draft your running backs after that. The next strategy is a zero receiver strategy. I have not seen this, but it is online and it has been done. It's a little wild. So you're going to fade your receivers early and load up on running backs, tight ends, and quarterbacks. We personally do a PPR league, which is kind of like the new normal these days, where you get 1 point per reception. So it doesn't really make sense to do this. Maybe if you're in a standard league, then maybe, but you're basically trying to dominate other positions early because like tight end and quarterback don't have a lot of depth. So as far as like the top guys versus the rest, right? If you're not drafting one of those top 3 4 quarterbacks, there's a significant fall off in fantasy points. However, if you wait too long, the depth dries up and then you might have a number 2 guy on a team be your starting receiver, and then you're going to be kind of hurting. I guess, to put it in a way, you're going to be really lacking some fantasy points, especially in PPR formats. However, if you're insistent on doing this, you're going to grab 2 top 20 running backs, and then I'd say a combo of like Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, and they're going to try to grab like a tight end like Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, or George Kittle. So it's kind of like just the opposite of the last one. Next, zero quarterback strategy. Believe it or not, people do this. I have personally done this before, and I think it's all situational with this one, to me specifically, because I think it truly depends on what's available. I think if people are going quarterbacks like crazy and you're the last guy to grab a quarterback, there's not really a reason to grab a quarterback. You could probably grab a nice running back, a good flex, a good receiver, maybe a decent tight end if it's still available, or maybe some depth. Just because if there's already 9 quarterbacks in a 10-man PPR league, no one's really going to grab a quarterback again till later. So I wouldn't, that's the only time I would probably maybe even consider this. However, like it says on the slide, you're going to wait until mid to late rounds for a quarterback. You're going to go receiver, running back early, which I do like. I'm really big on getting receiver and running backs, but you might miss an elite QB. But to be fair, if you're not getting Josh Allen, Lamar, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels. Yeah, I think after Jaden Daniels is kind of like a significant drop off. There's
Yeah.
still some rushing quarterbacks, but it's not the same. Like because you start getting into like your Jared Goffs and stuff like that and
Yeah,
Staffords.
you're pure
So
pocket passers.
right. So I think after like 5, 6, like I wouldn't even worry about it, and I would just wait for a quarterback, because then you can start getting some more depth. So you can get 2 top 20 running backs, 2 top 20 receivers, and you can get maybe like a top 10 tight end. Honestly, I would say if there's a top 5 tight end, maybe consider it, because after that, it kind of drops off significantly too. And with that being said, we'll go into our next strategy, which this is my personal favorite. And even though in the mock community draft, if you go back, I didn't do that. I want to say I've used this strategy like for the last 10 years, which is wild. And the reason why you go zero tight end is it's only because I think if you have an opportunity to get a top tight end really early, then it's kind of worth it, depending on where you get him, right? Like second, third round, if it's like a Bowers. But if it's not, like I'm not grabbing George Kittle in the second or third round. I think Bowers would probably be the only guy I would be interested in. However, you wait and people start going tight end, that's going to give you a lot more opportunity to get a lot more depth in your receivers and your running backs and even backups. Because I know when season comes around, bye weeks, injuries, those are the hardest positions to fill, more specifically running back. So that's something always to keep in the back of your head. So you're going to wait on the tight end, target late round breakouts. Your roster is going to be strong everywhere else, but you're probably going to have a weak tight end. But like I said earlier, if you're not getting one of those top guys, there's a significant fall off after the top 5 tight ends anyways. So you're not risking a lot by waiting to get a tight end. So you're going to get 3 top 30 running backs, 3 top 30 receivers, and maybe 1 top 10 quarterback. So this is a weird one, and I think positional scarcity strategy is only kind of for like super flex leagues would be kind of like the best way to think about it. And the only reason why I say that is because this really focuses on getting quarterbacks and tight ends. And honestly, like you shouldn't really go after a tight end early. Like I think Travis Kelsey in his prime was like a good example of somebody where you could, but I don't think he's there no more. And then if you're in a super flex league where the quarterback is allowed to be in the super flex spot, then obviously you're going to try to get 2 quarterbacks early. So that's when you start seeing Lamar and Josh Allen go 1 and 2 in your drafts. So I think this is where this strategy would really kind of flourish. So then you're kind of taking all those elite talents and those top differences in those categories of between different positions really early. However, when you do this, you will be losing value. But if you are going to use this draft strategy, some pairs I would suggest is like Brock Bowers, Josh Allen, Trey McBride, Lamar Jackson. After, I mean, I like George Kittle, but I wouldn't really want to like pair him with another elite quarterback. It's not, he's good, but it's not like a Brock or a Trey where they're like one of the sole providers of targets on their team. So with that being said, I just kind of wanted to give a little overview of some of the draft strategies, and I know it's probably going to mostly help some of the newer people, but I know there's some vets too who may not know this. I know X didn't really know, kind of when we were talking in passing, didn't know that all these different strategies. You're kind of just like I do what I as I see it, and I do that too as well. But maybe this will kind of help give you a different idea of how people are drafting, because I do see that in a lot of mock drafts how they do follow some of these strategies, and you can kind of recognize it very early on. But some of my closing thoughts, just draft smart, stay flexible, win big, and good luck this season. And like I said at the beginning of this, we have a 3-part series where we did a draft kit, we did a mock draft, and now we have some draft strategies. So if you want to go check that out, please do. X, I know this was kind of like my version of a TED talk here, but what does your draft strategy look like when you are drafting for your
So
fantasy football leagues?
for me, it kind of just obviously it depends on the league, and you're gonna know. Like for example, if uh, they're drafting running back heavy early on, then it kind of just comes into you have two options. You could essentially follow the crowd or go against the grain. It's kind of your choice and your option on how you want to go. If everybody's going running back heavy, that means wide receivers are available. So you could pick up all the wide receivers you want and have, superstar wide receivers as your 1 and 2. But then you run the risk of, you know, going into running backs and you have, your Jerome Fords as your number one running back.
Right.
And, then you're just sitting there like crap. So there are strategies that you can do. Like there was 1 year I did a strategy where I picked up nothing but running backs. I literally took my entire draft board was nothing but running backs. And I just took top running backs. So everybody had to trade with me if they wanted running backs. And I would pick up off of free agency, I would pick up, you know, little just fillers for the time being, but I starved people out of running backs and desperation starts to kick in for some people. For some people, it won't. Like me, I would have been like, well, that dude's just taking himself out of the race. But, whatever. I just did it for funsies just to see what would happen. But majority of the time of the mock drafts that I've been running, it seems like running back is the way to go. So for me, I normally make in my own head a little bit of a tier list of all the players. So for me, it's, I have my superstars, you have your high ends, your mid tiers, and then your low tiers. And as long as you stick with that, then you'll be fine. It's kind of just reading the room. Essentially, in my opinion, there's only 3 strategies that you should really go, which is either running back, wide receiver, or what I would call balance, which is pretty much you go one running back, one wide receiver. I think, in all honesty, you shouldn't be picking a quarterback in your first 3 rounds. In my opinion, you shouldn't be. That's
I think it
just going to mess
depends.
you up.
I think it depends.
If it's a super flex league, I get it. I'm in a super flex league in one of them,
Yeah.
but it's also a one player keeper league. So I always keep a quarterback. So then I never have to worry.
Right.
But if you're in that type of league where there is no keeper and stuff like that, sure, uh, I wouldn't suggest getting a quarterback first. I would suggest getting a quarterback second round because to me, you're always going to end up lacking in one of the positions. And quarterbacks, I mean, you can make do with your pocket passing quarterbacks, in my
Right.
opinion. But for me, normally what I do is I'll pick from the two. I'll either go running back, running back. Then if I go running back first, then I'll always go receiver, receiver. And then fifth round is always the quarterback for me. I know some people are like, oh, well, then you're stuck with, you know, uh,
Kyler Murray.
yeah, Kyler Murray or something like that. I'm like, well, yeah, that's great. But I've also picked up high to superstar receivers and running backs to where it's not a problem. Like, because your
Right.
quarterbacks in most leagues, your quarterback isn't going to win you the game. Your running backs and receivers will. So to be top end on both of those, that's what's going to win it for you.
I
So
will say though,
that's what I do.
I do think it depends because there are some leagues, like I'll give you an example. My wife, she was able to have Josh Allen on her team, and everyone else sucked. Like they were
Right.
terrible, and she
Right.
literally went to the playoffs just because of Josh Allen. So I think it's really specific.
Right.
Like if you can get the top three quarterbacks, like I don't get mad if someone grabs QB3 in the third round. I know my wife grabs quarterback first round. That's her choice. I don't agree with it, but if that's what she wants to do, that's what she wants to do. And if people start freaking out, that's when my zero tight end, zero quarterback strategy starts coming into play because I'm like, well, give me all the best running backs and receivers. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I think the biggest way to approach, and I think like obviously some of the vet players kind of, are able to adapt as they do it because you've done so many drafts and mock drafts, you
Right.
played for so long that it's just kind of like you kind of already know and have like it's a lot of it's luck and gut feeling, obviously, and your players being not injured throughout the season. But like for me, it's I always look at positional, like not really projections of fantasy points, but how I feel based on my research, how I think they're going to do. So if
Right.
everyone's grabbing top receivers and there's a high end running back there, I'm like, well, I'd rather get a good running back than grab
Right.
receiver number 8. And kind of like what X was saying earlier. And likewise, with everyone's going running backs, I'd grab a receiver because why
Right.
not? And it's eventually going to come back to you in the snake draft, anyways. So if you want to grab a running back on the back end, you can.
And that's the
So,
thing too, is I think as you're going through the draft, sometimes, you know, in my opinion, once you hit around that sixth round, for me personally, because like I said, I'll either go running back, then receiver, receiver, or I'll go receiver, receiver, running back. And then that fifth round, I always pick up a quarterback. At that point, normally once you hit around the sixth round, if you go my way of drafting, right? Then at that point, it's all based upon the best available. So do I, you know, I have, well, I have my starting running backs, my starting receivers. Now I'm just looking at depth. So at that point, it's just nothing but best available. So
mhm,
if I have a running back that looks good, but I have a receiver that's better, I'll just pick up the receiver. Now, granted, if you have already like four receivers and only still two running backs, you need
go
to go
grab a
running
running
back.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, when you start to hit about that middle ground, because for me, I don't like to be uneven. So I'll normally try and keep it even throughout my drafts. And that's normally what you'll see. And, you know, like like you said, it's kind of based on feeling. It's yeah, honestly a lot of fantasy is just luck
Yeah.
majority of the time because if
And your player's not getting injured is really
yeah,
what
the most
if you're the
healthiest
healthiest
team
team. Mhm,
normally wins and
right,
definitely makes playoffs for sure. But I mean,
right,
you can go back to the video, see our draft, and you could see kind of like, especially how I broke it down, like with my draft strategies and things like that,
right,
And then there's always the fear factor of it, right? So majority of the time, the people you're playing with. So you can start to see when you set in the panic, nobody's taking a tight end the entire time. And then all of a sudden you start taking a tight end and then you watch everybody behind you start taking tight ends. That's when the panic sets in. Don't be afraid to
right,
start the panic. But it's just based on you, and I've done drafts where I went the balance strategy as well. My first pick was a wide receiver, second pick was a running back, and then I just kind of went best available at that point. But I think, in my opinion, if you make a tier list in your head, kind of the players that you believe are superstar players, your high tier, mid tier, low tier, that helps your draft go on. And you got to remember to analysts, pro, fantasy people, they're guessing
Us.
just like, yeah, they're guessing just like the rest of us, except us. We know what we're talking about. We're the best in the business.
Okay.
But regardless, just make that tier, have your value. Don't be afraid to go against the grain. Uh, like in our mock draft, because that's kind of the only reference we really have right now. Is in our mock draft, I feel like my team was well balanced. I feel like my team was good. You know, I got the best of the depth that I could get. So for me, I feel good with the team. I showed a couple other people my team, and they're like, bro, that's a pretty solid team. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm doing all right. Don't be afraid to talk to other people that play fantasy, show them your team, and be like, hey, dude, what do you think? You know, Getting other people's opinions, always good. Always good.
Y- Yeah, and just some last remarks before we head out here. I just wanted to say, kind of like what X was saying, don't be afraid to set the panic, but also don't panic. So
Yes.
if there's people that are grabbing quarterback, kind of what I was talking about, the no QB, if there's 9 quarterbacks taken and they all got drafted in the line and you're the last guy, there's no reason to grab a quarterback. Go get the best receiver, running back that's available, and go get a quarterback later. It's not a big deal. They're not going to draft a back to back quarterback. So
Right.
that's one thing. Two, I would say obviously everything's going to be situational. So kind of just go with the flow, see what's best. Really look at your rankings and how you do it. And honestly, like they're not a sponsor, but I'll just kind of shout them out. Like if you're like, and I would say mostly for newer players, like if you're a brand new player and you're not really sure, and I mean, football, like I wouldn't go say it for someone who doesn't know football, but say football and this is your first, second year playing fantasy football, really check out Walter's picks. I know it's like $30 or something, but you can sync your league in there and they'll kind of guide you of how they put their rankings. And it kind of is just like embedded into your draft software through your computer. So it's kind of like I wouldn't say it's like a cheat code. It's more of like a help software, but it might be something worthwhile. Obviously, we don't have the capability of doing that with our rankings, but
Right.
they have people that do that 24/7, 365. So it might be something. I tried it one year. It was all right. It didn't really win me. I know I won that year. Actually, I won that year. But I mean, it might just be something, also for more of the newer players. And the last best tip I can give you is please go on the waiver wire. So even though you're going to draft and do all these things every week, you need to go on the waiver wire and you need to grab somebody. In a week that you're not grabbing somebody off the waiver wire, it's pretty slim. It can happen depending on if your team's really healthy, but through all the years that I played fantasy football, I promise people are going to get hurt. People are going to get COVID.
Yeah.
People are going to get suspended. Someone's going to hit their girlfriend. Someone's going to get a DUI. I mean, it happens every year, and someone's not going to play. So because of that, please go on that waiver wire, grab somebody, and I promise if you're doing those things, you will make fantasy football playoffs.
One thing I would recommend as well when you're drafting, which is something that I see a lot, which I would highly recommend to not do, is if you're going through the draft and you see that somebody hasn't picked up a tight end, somebody hasn't picked up a quarterback, whatever the case may be, don't start changing your draft around what other people need. It sounds fun, it sounds good in theory, but all it's doing is hurting you because as you start to get into those later rounds of the draft, more around your 10-ish, 9's kind of where we start to get on the fence, but normally around 10 or 11 is when you're starting to get at points where you're taking shots in the dark on
Mm-hmm.
people. So please, one thing that will help your team is to not try and block or screw the guy in front of you, behind you, or the guy later on down the road that might need that position. It's not going to benefit your team. Sounds good in theory, isn't good in practice. It's not going to benefit your team because now you're going to be stuck because some guy hasn't picked a tight end. Now you have three tight ends on your roster. Are
Yeah,
you
there's no
really going to
reason
play
to do
three
that.
tight
No,
ends? No, you're not going to be doing it.
I
So
think I think
don't
it's
be
okay
that
to
guy.
get running back and receiver depth, but I think as far as like tight end depth, like you don't really need a tight end to pick up a waiver
No,
wire guy.
no.
If you
Majority of your picks should be running back and receiver. If you're picking
r-
anything else out of that, you you definitely are probably not making playoffs in any of your leagues and probably haven't for a long time.
yeah,
So,
and the last thing that I forgot to mention is handcuffs. So if you draft somebody like a Christian McCaffrey, draft Isaac Rindo. Someone might
right.
draft him and you might need to trade for him, but some of those guys where there's a clear number 2 guy in the backfield for a high end number 1 guy. Saquon's backup, probably not. Like It's those guys that have proven themselves to be very good when the backup's out. Like David Montgomery, even though he's kind of splitting carries, we don't really necessarily know how that situation is going to play out this year because there's a bunch of different reports on how that's going to go. But if you have Jahmyr Gibbs and you grab David Montgomery, it might not be a bad thing considering like if he
Now,
gets
that would
hurt,
be an
then
amazing one, but
yeah, that'd be probably your best case scenario.
yeah,
But if you like this episode, please let us know. Please like, please subscribe. This will probably be the final part of our preseason NFL draft kit series that we did. It was kind of not something we fully planned, but I thought it'd be something fun. I know I enjoyed filming it. X,
yeah.
did you enjoy filming it? I
Oh
think
yeah.
it's cool. I think going forward, we'll probably continue to do this for the years to come. So our first episode for the NFL season will be the first week of September. It'll drop on a Wednesday or Thursday, depending on when we film. So we
Yeah.
have our starts and sits. We have our bets for the games, so over, under, money line, and total points. And then we'll go into some fantasy hot takes, which I'm really, really looking forward to. I think we have to cook up some, not talk to each other about them, and see what happens. Throughout the season, I am planning on getting some guests on, some members of the community. For sure, I have a delusional Browns fan coming on who's in love with Shador Sanders. I need the community really, really to get behind me and
Ugh.
comment that we want Angel, our delusional Cowboys fan, to come on and talk about how good the Cowboys are and that they're going to win the Super Bowl. Because right now he's saying they're not, but as soon as they win a game in the NFL season, the regular season, I know
It's
he's
on,
going to go
boys.
crazy and
Oh
think
yeah.
they're going to win for the next 3 years. So if there's anything you guys want us to cover, or if you have any questions, please go ahead and comment on our YouTube video here, and I will go ahead and respond to that. I'm the one who kind of runs all the socials, and I will run it through X. X also has an account that he can comment on as well. And if you haven't already, like I said, like, subscribe, check out our social media. We're posting crazy NFL memes 3 times a day, all Pacific time, 3 o'clock, 5:30, and 8 p.m. And you can check us out on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everything. So until next time, everybody, peace.
Later.